Welcome to another edition of the Raditude Show. I'm so excited here. One of my favorite people in the entire world, no, in the entire universe is with us here, Max Rooke. He is just a phenomenal person. What he does for kind of professional work is he's the assistant women's soccer coach at Pepperdine University. That's where he met. But what he does really in life is he inspires people. He motivates people. He is one of the most incredible role models for people, young people in particular. And it's just such a pleasure to have him here. I'm so excited. Each of our guests that have been on have been just amazing people. And I'm excited to have Max here.
Thank you so much.
Welcome,
for that
Max.
introduction. Goodness me. I have to live up to that hype now. But I appreciate you. I can say right back to you, the energy that you provide the world and all the people in your universe is nothing short of amazing. So anytime I get an opportunity to be around you, sharing your energy, I'm in. And so when you ask me to be a part of this, I'm like, no doubt, of course I'm in. Not only because hopefully we can talk about something pretty cool, but I just get to be around you for the next little bit. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so cool. And we could go into your background because it's amazing, but we're going to go into how your mind really developed. But I want to start first with, what's the title of your program that you teach?
Well,
I think it's really cool.
My philosophy is built around this idea of L2TM, so max, right? Live life to the max. So how do you live like a next level life? And a lot of it started from being in competitive sports, being in soccer, being a player, being a coach. So how do you live life? How do you do high performance? How do you get high performance results? How do you get great results? How do you be a great teammate? How do you, all of those things. But it's evolved now into this idea of like, how do you just do life at high level? Something that I know you're amazing at, right? So I know a lot of people that are super successful, but they're not very happy. So it's like, you've got to find that balance of like, how do you do your entire life at high level? So my philosophy is built around my company, and my business is built around this idea of life to the max. And so I have multiple programs within that. So one of them is the biggest one. The flagship program is called The Journey from Good to Great: How Small Shifts Create Extraordinary Results. And it's just basically teaching people this idea of the success paradox. A lot of people think success is one way, but I would argue that when you actually look at it, the very best, they look at it a different way. So it's, how do you create these small shifts that can create these extraordinary results and take you from this concept of good to great, And then most recently this year, I just published a book called Max Moments, which is sort of carrying on from the same idea, that how do we just do this concept of this thing we called life at a high level.
I love it because it really kind of parallels what I call Liv-nRAD, life to the max, Liv-nRAD. It's kind of very similar kinds 100%. Of things. And we've had a lot of different kinds of trainings. But I want to go back. So you're a competitive soccer player in England or Scotland or Wales or one of those Great Britain countries, right? We Americans don't know those kinds of things. It's over there. You speak funny, and I don't understand most of the words.
Side note. Like, I've been over here for over 20 years now. When I first started, people would always come back, "Oh, you're not from around here. Oh, you're from England, right?" And then every now and again, like, so 9 times out of 10, it'd be, "Oh, you're from England." One time, somebody like, "Oh, you're from Australia." But now I've been over here so long, I think the American is mixed with the English. And now 9 times out of 10, people are like, "Oh, you're from Australia." And I'm like, nah. Then I get one person that hits it on the head. So I think we've got this little mixture of like English and American. And apparently England plus America equals Australia somehow. I don't know, but
I had no idea of that. Okay, so you're growing up, you're playing soccer, you're into sport. I get that. How did that, like this idea, this concept of life to the max, is it innate? Is it something you're born with? Is it something you develop? And kind of how did that start to form early on, or whenever it did start to form for you?
Great question. Appreciate you taking me back in time. So growing up in England, I think like many boys, young boys, and girls now, but at the time for me, like, it was all about how do you become a professional soccer player. Soccer is so big. Football in England is so big. I really only ever had one thing on my mind is how do I do what it takes to become a professional soccer player? So that was what my life was built around up until, so Reading Football Club was the professional team I used to play for. And as a boy, as I said, like 10, 11, 12, I got picked up by Reading Football Club. And this journey began of like doing what it takes with that one goal, that one solitary goal is like, how do you become a professional soccer player? And I did it, and I got to like 16 and I became a full-time professional. And then I played for Reading Football Club, and I got to 17, I got to 18. And what happens is it's very cutthroat. It's a very cutthroat industry. Looking back now, not always a healthy environment, right? But it was built around how do you make something of yourself. And so I learned so many amazing lessons. I learned so many amazing lessons about myself, about discipline, about hard work, about what it takes to be successful, like sacrifice. But ultimately, along the way, I got to a point where there was a coach, and obviously being a coach now, I realized the impact that coaches can have on their players. And the coach said, you know what? You're not going to make it in the game. You're not tall enough. You're not strong enough. You're not this. You're not that. I'm only itty bitty, like 5'6". Like, you're not tall enough to be a soccer player. So my career got cut short. They said, you know what? You're not going to make it. So then this debate became, what's next, right? And so, anyways, long story short, what I was going to say is that my life took a significant turn when I had this kind of fork in the road, and it was really about, do I continue this path of trying to make it as a professional soccer player in England? And at the time, I didn't know anybody that did it, but there was this option to come out to America. They said, hey, have you ever thought about coming out to America? Have you ever thought about playing college soccer? Have you ever thought about this idealistic world of coming out and carrying on your career, but doing it in a different country? And I had nobody in my life had ever done that before. No, my whole life, all my family lives within, a couple of mile radius of each other. And that began this sort of idea in my head of like, what do you really want out of life? And ultimately, at that time, it was a decision that I look back now, and it completely changed the trajectory of my life. Not just because of what I was able to do with the game of soccer and now becoming a coach in my profession, but it changed my whole perspective on life. Because for the longest time, I lived in that world, that cutthroat world, that industry of like, there's one way to do it. There's one way to do life. And this decision to come out to America has opened me up to people like you, different teachings, different understandings. And ultimately, like I said, that one of the biggest blessings in my life was when I made the decision to come out to America. And I'm forever grateful for that, because my journey has taken on a completely different path. And I feel so blessed and so grateful, because at that time, Robert, it's like there's these moments in life where I think some of the most impactful decisions I've ever made have come with the least amount of information. And I was talking to somebody about that the other day, and it really hit me as I was telling that person, is that probably the most powerful decisions that I've ever made in my life have come with the least amount of information. That was one of them. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea how I was going to make it work in America. I literally came out with a suitcase, a smile, and a positive attitude. And I said, somehow I'm going to make this work. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. And 20 whatever years later, I'm here talking to you saying that the power of the mind, the power of positive attitude, the power of like perspective is everything. And I have that decision to be thankful for.
Wow. I've never thought about that your most significant decisions had to do with the least information. That's a unique thought to me.
No.
You don't plan it that way. It just sort of happened that way, right?
100%. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So when you got to the United States, what did you do? Did you go play college soccer?
Yeah.
Or did you start coaching, or did you work at Pizza
No,
Hut?
I came over. I played soccer at Mercer University. It's in Macon, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. So I was on the East Coast, and I began to continue my career and had a lot of success there, and was fortunate enough to win a bunch of championships and do some really cool things. Had my jersey retired. I got to play in two world championships for the national team, and so I got to do all of these really, really cool things. And by playing on the national team, I got to travel the world a lot, like what you do now, which I have so much respect for. Getting to see different cultures and the way people live, and so the game of soccer really just opened up my entire life. And so when I got to being done playing, so when I got to the end of my career at Mercer and stuff, and like, again, that idea of like, what's next, I really felt like the game had given me so much, provided me so many opportunities, so many blessings in my life. I felt like the natural extension of that was to then turn it back and use the game of soccer to give back to it for what it gave me. So becoming a coach seemed it seemed like the next natural thing, because the game had been so good to me. Like, I want other people to have the same experiences I have. I want people to have those amazing experiences, those life-changing experiences. And also I want to be that coach that can influence somebody like those previous coaches in my life that influenced me. And so I turned around and I got straight into coaching. I got my licenses and I got accredited and I got all of that. And I got straight into coaching. I became a high school teacher and a coach. And then I met my beautiful wife, who I've been married to for 15 years. She's a coach. So in Georgia, we met. She was coaching at Mercer University after I graduated. She took over as the head volleyball coach about 4 or 5 years after I graduated. So then, being local in the area, we connected. So I met, this idea of America and coaching. It provided me with the most beautiful person in my life, which is my wife. And so all of these things happened. So then we moved to Illinois because we decided that we wanted to do life together. So it was never about my career or her career. We said, look, we're going to do this thing called life together. So as a coach, she had a position she wanted to explore at the University of Illinois. So we moved there, and she's like, what about you? I was like, I'll figure it out. Don't you worry. So I stepped away from what I was doing. We moved to Illinois. And then ultimately, where you and I come into it is our goal was to move back to California, and which is where she was originally from. And so Tim, the head coach now at Pepperdine, who I've been working for the last 10 years, he reached out to me, a long time ago, and he had a position vacant, and he said, would you be willing to become my assistant here at Pepperdine? So I looked at my wife and I said, what do we do? She says, you take it. And I said, what about you? And she looked at me and she said, Robert, she looked in my eyes, she said the same thing that I told her. She was like, I'll figure it out. We're doing this thing called life together. So we moved to Pepperdine, and now I've been at Pepperdine in the position that I'm in for the last 10 years, and it's been fantastic. And so lastly on that, just to kind of bring it all back full circle, is that decision to move from playing to coaching was amazing, because I felt like it was my opportunity to give back to the game. But along the way, what I've now learned is that coaching is not just coaching soccer. Like, soccer is just a platform. Soccer is just a platform to teach life. And so what you're talking about with the Life to the Max, about 4 or 5 years ago, I made this really concerted effort to say, I don't just want to be limited by one team or just coaching one team. Like, there's so many people out there that need to know what they're capable of. So then that really started the Life to the Max, where I was like, yes, soccer can be one platform to coach and teach, but there's so many other ways to do it. And so now my Life to the Max coaching platforms and my book and stuff like that is just ways to really continue this evolution of helping people, which is something I know you're really, really passionate about. And I absolutely feel very grateful and fortunate to do it.
Yeah. So along the way, then, I take it that you had some very influential coaches that modeled for you, that taught beyond just coaching soccer, that they taught about life. Is that true? And can you give some examples where they've influenced you the most?
I think. Well, there's so many, but where I'm currently at with Tim, when I met Tim, I think that Tim Ward.
This is Tim Ward, the head coach.
That's right. And so I think there is a great place to start, because prior to going to Pepperdine, I sort of had this. You talk about this idea of like mindset and kind of like the idea of success, right? And what it takes to be successful. And what really is success? Success really is it's all in the eye of the beholder. I always ask a lot of people, like, what does success mean to you? Because it means different things to different people. And so prior to that, I'd had one idea of success, but along the way, I was evolving my version of success as a coach, and like what success means to me and what it takes to run a successful program. And sometimes I would get caught. I would like run up against these brick walls. I'm like, does everybody think the same way I do, that it isn't just about winning? Like it's not just like, even though we're in this competitive environment trying to win championships, like it really isn't just about winning. And then I meet Tim Ward, and I shared in somebody a person who shared a similar outlook, not just on success, but on life, which is there more to competitive sports than just winning? And so that really is I think Tim has been such an influential part of my life, because together we've created this environment at Pepperdine Soccer where our program is not built around winning. We've created this sense of, we're like, okay, if we're going to take a pyramid and we're going to say, okay, and our pyramid represents our program, and we were to look at the apex, the tip of the pyramid, and we say, whatever you put at the tip of the pyramid is the most important thing And then everything below that is going to be influenced by whatever it's, because it's going to filter down. So whatever you put at the top, whatever's most important, then that is going to be, how you define your program. So for some people, if you put winning there, then it's going to determine how you treat your teammates. It's going to determine how you treat your players. It's going to determine how you treat winning. It's going to determine how you treat losing. It's going to determine what you're willing to do and not do on the recruiting trail, rules that you're willing or not willing to break, like all these different things. And so for some people, and there's no judgment, but for some people, top of the pyramid is like win at all costs, But for Pepperdine, our tip of our pyramid is developing women of character. And it sounds so simple, but it's like when you put and you put at the top of the pyramid developing women of character, then it's changed everything about how we do life within our program, because it's not just about winning. But the beautiful thing is that winning becomes a byproduct of that, And so we've been able to be as successful as we've ever been, but yet the way we do it is just, I think it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful because the players know we love them. The players know we care about them. There's just a different way in which we go about this pursuit of success, but we do it from a different angle. And I think that, again, I was kind of building that myself, and then I met in Tim a partner in like, okay, this is how we can live in the world of high performance and success and stuff like that, but we do it in a healthy way where the players know we love them and they know that their value doesn't come from what they do, it comes from who they are.
Why or how did you develop this philosophy? Because you're coming from a football, soccer crazed country where winning is kind of everything. I mean, at least when Americans look at English soccer and the crazy people there in some of the contests, and when England's not doing so well on the world scene, the fans are going crazy. What was it in your life that influenced you to say winning isn't everything, but developing young women of character is? And is that the real strategy to winning? Because that's a little bit interesting in itself.
It is. I mean, it's a great question. When did that happen? I think it's a culmination of learning from people who didn't do it right, like who got caught up in the idea of winning. And I know that I can look back at my life and say there were times where I say, I might have been successful, but I wasn't happy, And like for instance, let me take a side note. You and I went to one of my favorite moments is the week that we spent at David Destiny, right? You remember we were roommates at David Destiny with Tony Robbins, right? And that really challenged me to kind of create this sense of, okay, there's success and there's fulfillment. You know what I'm saying? And those two things, success and fulfillment. And there are so many people that are really successful, but they're not fulfilled. And there are some people that seemingly have nothing. They're some of the happiest people in the world. And why is that? And then when you take that concept and you bring it back to like soccer or teams and stuff like that, I was seeing a lot of people who their identity was built around winning or starting. Like on our team, for instance, I come back to our team. There are so many young, beautiful young women on our team that their identity is built around, do I start? Do I not start? Do I play? Do I not play? Am I the the queen of the team, or am I just a supporting player? And so it really hurt. Like it hurt me in your heart to see somebody be affected so much by this concept of winning and losing or starting or not starting, that I was like, there has to be a better way. Like there just has to be a better and healthier way to help people understand that, again, this concept, your value doesn't come from what you do, it comes from who you are. And so I think, to answer your question, along the way, I think I learned myself. I think I saw other coaches put so much value in winning, and I saw how it affected me as a player, being coached by them, to now, doing what we do. And we're not perfect, but I think that the Date with Destiny event that you and I went to, and I really got to shape who I was as a person from that event, and really coming out with a better understanding of this idea of like success versus fulfillment. And is there a way to have both, And that really hit me in a way where a lot of what I do from that point forward has been about, I think there's a way to have both, I think there is a way to have both.
Yeah. One of the things that you commented on, and I described that
Yeah,
as contrast. So oftentimes through life, we don't know necessarily what we want or what we don't want until we run into it and we go, oh, I don't
right.
want that.
Mm,
That's contrast. That's contrast. And by knowing what you don't want, it tells
yeah,
you what you do want. And one of the things that in my recent learnings over the last year or so is to really value the
sure.
contrast in life. And I never really thought about that before. And when you can start to value the contrast in life, you start moving toward an area that I call unconditional love. So if something bad happens in your life and you go,
Mm,
thank you for that, because that taught me that I don't want to be that kind of coach that winning at all costs. I instead want to be one that values the development
yeah,
of young people, the character development. But without seeing that contrast,
yeah,
you wouldn't have
100%.
known. And I just find this fascinating, the way we learn. And that's what I really wanted to get to with you, is how do you learn these things so that people in our audience who are sitting there going like, oh, that sounds great, but how do I
Yeah,
change my mind, my mindset?
yeah,
We
yeah,
teach mindset stuff. And one of the things I've found is that, we're really great, even up to Tony Robbins. He's great at teaching a lot of different things that last, for some people, maybe a month or 3 months. But how do you actually make something
sure.
last a lifetime? And so to
Yeah,
accomplish what you're talking about, to
yeah.
live to the max, how would you
Well,
answer that, Max? How do you actually get happiness, fulfillment,
yeah,
mindset changes that
yeah.
last a lifetime,
Well,
not just a
yeah.
season with the Pepperdine women's soccer team?
I love that. I love the idea of contrast. That's fantastic. I mean, in my head, I'm just like, that's brilliant. That's so good. That's so good. I think what I can share a story. I think a story might be able to help with this. So you talk about contrast, right? And so go back to my program and stuff like that, this success paradox, which is similar. You talk about contrast. What we're really saying there is there's contrast. There's this, and then there's this, and when I talk about this idea of the success paradox, like there's what you would think, and then there's what is, right? And so one of the concepts that I like to talk about is this idea of focus. Where focus goes, energy flows. Is in it's like so many people focus on what they want, right? And that is important, right? But then there's this sense of who do you need to be to get it, right? And so I would argue that you should spend more time and energy on the person that you need to be, right, than what it is you actually want. So the story I have about this is I had this young lady by the name of Brie Vasali, okay, and it's one of my favorite stories that I share. And so she was a player at Pepperdine, and she was this little she had some like Italian blood in her, so she was like a little feisty thing. And she was itty bitty, Robert. She was like 5 foot nothing. She may have been there when you were at Pepperdine, but so she comes into the program as a freshman, right? And so she comes in, she says, hey, Coach Max, can I come by your office? I want to have a meeting with you. She's like, I was like, sure, no problem. So she comes in, she knew about like Life to the Max, she knew about this stuff. So she comes in, she sits in my office as a freshman, right? She's been there like months, whatever. She comes in, she says, hey, Max, she goes, I want you to be my mentor. I said, great, well, I'm your coach. She said, no. She said, you're my coach, soccer, I get it. I want you to be my like mindset. I want you to be my mentor. I'm like, great, awesome. She's like, I got big goals, big dreams. I was like, all right, well, let's get straight to it. Okay, I gave her a pen. I said, all right, here's my whiteboard. Write on the board, what do you want? So this is a freshman who's been in the program for maybe like, a week or two. I'm talking. She starts writing on the board. And it's a true story. She goes, I want to be the best player on the team. I want to be the top goal scorer on the team. I want to be the WCC player of the year. I want to be an All-American. I want to go professional. And I want to play on the US national team. And I'm kind of looking in my head going like, just that? Like, that's, that's all, just like, that's pretty bold, like for somebody who's just walking in, like, as a freshman, I'm like, that's pretty bold. But I loved it. I loved it. So anyways, long
Mm-hmm.
story short, this became like her list of like, her vision of like what she wanted to achieve. And I think that it's so important to have this vision, right? Like, you got to have this vision in life of what you're moving towards. It's so important. So this was her goals. This was her vision. So she started like playing at Pepperdine, but everything really revolved around this idea of this is what she wanted. And every time she didn't get it, there was all these excuses that came. Well, that's not fair. This is not fair. I should have been this and I should have done that. And then, somebody got the player of the year. Well, that's not fair. I scored this many goals and she was the player. And there was all of this blaming, right? Sometimes blaming other people. We're blaming events. Sometimes we blame ourselves, right? And so we kept having these meetings, and then we got into like a sophomore year, and similar patterns started to happen. She would get close. She was like, then she would like win the all conference performer. She became an all conference performer. Amazing, right? But the idea, what's your vision of success? And so I'm like, that's pretty darn good. She's like, no, not good enough, not good enough. She's like, that I have to be the player of the year. Like being all conference is not good enough. And so going back to like me. And you asked about sort of kind of my development. I know I've been caught up in that as well. Is sometimes you have these high goals, this perfectionist. You got to, this perfectionism is one of the lowest standards you can have in life, right? Because it's unattainable. So she had these unattainable, at least unattainable in the moment goals, and so all of these quality things that were happening in her life, she wasn't accepting that credit. She wasn't, being grateful. So anyways. So we got to like right before her senior year, and I believe that junior year we won the championship, And so she's like, "Yeah, we won the championship, but I didn't. But I did. Well, I wasn't the best player." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness me!" So anyways, so we got to the junior year. So Rob, I'm making this longer than it needs to be. This is it. This is what I'm getting to. I said to her, I said, Brie. She came in the office, and we had our meeting again, and I said, "Look, where are we at?" She's like, "Well, I want this." I said, "Brie, stop." I said, "Stop. I said, you've been telling me for 3 years what you want. I know what you want. I said, let's start talking about who you need to be to get it. And she's like, well, da, da, da. And I said, look, let's get clear. Let's get crystal clear. You're crystal clear on what you want, but now let's get crystal clear on who you need to be. And so we put all of our energy and we shifted it into this concept of who she needed to be. And we got really, really clear. And we can go, we don't have time to go into the strategies around that, but it's just like, we got really conscious of like the type of teammate she needed to be, the type of changes she needed to make, the type of habits that she needed to implement, the type of actions that she needed to take. And in her senior year, folks just took all that focus off of what she wanted, and she put it all on who she needed to be. 3 months later, she was the best player on her team. She was the top goal scorer on her team. She was the WCC Player of the Year. She was an All-American. That happened in November. In December, we went to the national convention, and she got drafted into the NWSL by the Chicago Red Stars. She's now moved over to England. She's played in England for Man City and in the FA Cup final in front of like 80,000 people. She has this unbelievable career. She came back to play for the Houston Dash. Anyway, so she's had this amazing career. She's still playing. And after she got drafted, a month after that, the US national team called her into camp. And I'm like, how does that happen? How do you go from 3 years of struggle? And some people might say, well, it took 3 years in the development process to get to that point. I'm like, I don't think it took 3 years. I think it took her 3 years to make the decision to stop focusing on what she wanted and start focusing on who she needed to be. And then her whole life changed. And so I know it sounds so simple, but things like that from a mindset standpoint, we get so trapped in like what we want. And all I did is help her kind of get out of her own way, because the thing that she wanted the most was the thing that was getting in her way. She was so focused on what she wanted. So let's just put that to the side for a second, and let's just get really clear on who she needed to be. And structurally, that changed everything for her. And she's going to have this amazing career. And I look back at that, and I'm like, that to me says everything about the power of the mind.
So that is an awesome story, and congratulations to her and to you. My question, maybe this isn't a fair question, but why didn't you do that the first week or the first year? Why did you wait till before
It's a great question,
year?
and I have been asked that before. And my answer is I think that, and I've been victim of this too, I think we can all say, if we're all honest, is the person has to be open and ready.
Sure. But did you know that, or was that part of your development also, in that it took 3 years for you to figure that out?
I don't know. That I've not been asked, and I think that's a fair question too. Is as I'm evolving as a leader and a coach myself, trying to understand and trying to hone in, my skills for sure. And I would come back and I would say, so yeah, I definitely could take ownership in that. And I appreciate you saying that, because I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. And I think that's a great part that my journey as a leader and coach in that process got to a place where I was clearer on how to help her get to where she wanted to be. I also know that as somebody who had been in her shoes, sometimes you can have all the tools, but unless you're ready to receive them, it doesn't matter, and you know this,
Sure.
that there are so many people in life, like we have so much information available to us, in life. You can pick up like this podcast. Like I'm sure everybody could listen to every single episode of your podcast and just be inundated with just information, just nuggets of gold. Just, man, that is awesome. That is awesome. That can change my life. That can change my life. But unless you act on it, you know what I'm saying? So I feel there has to be an element where the person has to be ready and open in their heart and soul and mind to be able to take that information and actually apply it. And that comes down to, I think sometimes, we do things out of motivation and sometimes out of desperation. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we're inspired to do things and sometimes we get so desperate. And I think if I look at it as a kind of 30,000 foot view, looking back, and I appreciate you answering that question, because I don't think I've ever shared this before, but I think she was desperate. I think she got to a senior year. I think she was desperate. I think freshman year, she's like, oh, I've got another year. Sophomore year, don't worry about it, coach. We'll figure it out. Junior year, we're like, you know what? It's going to happen. And then she got to a senior year. And what happened? She got desperate. She's like, I've only got one more shot at this thing. And so whether we're inspired by inspiration or we get so desperate, but in the middle, right there, when things are good, that's why I say good to great, because when people are just good, nobody does anything when it's just good. When you're just good, nothing really happens in good. It's when you're inspired to be great or something so tragic happens and you face so much adversity that you're forced to make a change. Those two spectrums are where magic happens.
Yeah. And what's the title of your book?
Right here. Yeah, I got it here.
You got it there? Let's see it.
It's called Max Moments. So it says
Max
powerful
Moments.
lessons to help you break through from good to great. And what it's just, I've been putting out a bunch of content over the years, these little mini Max Moments, little videos and stuff. Each one's like, 3, 4, 5 minutes. And so it's a collection of those each Max Moment is like 3 or 4 pages. And it's just, these little shots of insight and encouragement. And so that's kind of the latest thing.
So would you share some of your best Max moments, your favorite ones, most, the most influential ones, the ones you're most proud of, whatever you want to share?
The book was really built around, so I've got like over 100 of these Max moments that are on YouTube and everywhere and stuff. And so when I created the book, I was like, okay, well, how do I package it into something that makes sense? So really there's 5 sections of the book. So it's Max moments on vision, because you got to have a great vision in life. Once you have a great vision, you have to have the right mindset to carry out the vision. So the second section is on mindset, which is obviously the whole topic of today. Once you have the great vision and you have the right mindset, unless you take the right actions and have the right habits in your life to follow through on it. So the third section is on habits. So we've got vision, mindset, habits. You could have all those 3 things, but what's life going to do? Life's going to hit you in the mouth. It's going to tip you upside down. It's going to throw a curveball. So section 4 is about resilience. Like how do you meet life and how do you meet adversity at those times in your life to be able to continue on the path, continue on the journey and not give up, basically, just to be able to stay on the path. So section 4 is resilience. And then like we've kind of the theme for today a little bit, section 5 is on happiness. Like I know there's a lot of people that are really successful, but they're not very happy. So how do you pursue something really big and also maintain a level of happiness? So those are the 5 sections: vision, mindset, habits, resilience, and happiness. And there's about 8 Max moments in there. So, 2 of them.
Pick one from happiness. I want to know how to be happy.
There's one on happiness. I'd say, actually, somebody recently asked me about this one, and I shared. So goodness me, there's so many, goodness me. So we've got section 4. We've got positivity ratio, the magnifying glass, the smile experiment, the Chinese family, the main thing at Thanksgiving, but the connect the dots one is my one. We use connect the dots because I think connect the dots is it relates back to my idea at Reading Football Club. So this might put everything in perspective. So connect the dots. Have you ever, Robert, remember being a kid? Remember the coloring books where you had all the dots and you had to like get the pencil and you had to like connect the one dot to the next dot. And so you open up the book, right? You open up the book and stuff like that, and you're like, what is this? And it's just like a bunch of dots. And then all of a sudden the page says, you connect this dot to this dot, and this dot to this dot, and this dot to this dot. And then all of a sudden you connect all the dots, you look and it's a rabbit on the, you're like, whoa, it was just a bunch of dots. And now we got a rabbit on the screen. You know what I'm saying? And so, and then obviously then you build the rabbits and then you start coloring in. So I say, connect the dots. Coloring books are like life. And I'm like, so many times we look at things that happen in our life like a connect the dots page where the dots aren't connected. And we look at each dot independently, and whether that's good things, but also adversity. And we look at something and say that, you know, that happened to me, that's not fair, there's this, and that, and whatever we create, like the story that we create in our minds, the story we create about our lives, about why things are the way they are. And a lot of it's based around these dots, these significant events that happen in our life. And I would challenge anybody that when you actually start to connect the dots, when you draw one dot to the next and you actually create that rabbit, what you start to see is that every event in our life has a purpose. Even the bad things, even the tough things, even the things that we don't want in life are actually just meant to connect us to another point in life. So when we get to that point in life, like we're talking about here, that happiness or that understanding of success, or that point in life where we feel like we have it, we get it, you know, you look back and you can say maybe one of your worst moments in life is connected to one of your best moments in life. And an example I would give, because I've already shared it, which is why I'm sharing this Max moment, is I actually write in the book and I talk about how the example I use is when I got let go by Reading Football Club and I was told, you are not good enough to be a professional soccer player. You are not tall enough. You're never going to make it. And you're not meant to be a professional soccer player. And for a boy who spent his entire life growing up trying to be a professional soccer player, when you get told that, it hurts. And if I isolate that moment, what I look back at that moment when I was isolated and I said, you know, I could say, poor me. I could have given up. I could have said, well, you know, maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. But now I look at how it was connected to the decision, the opportunity to come out to America. And when I came out to America, what I've achieved because of it, who I've met because of it, meeting you because of my choice to come out to America, marrying the most beautiful woman in my life who I've been married to for 15 years. And I look at all of those amazing things that have happened. And Robert, do you know what they're connected to? When I got told that I wasn't going to be a professional soccer player at Reading Football Club. And that's a connect the dot moment. How do you connect the beautiful life that I have now? And how do I connect it all the way back to being told back when I was like 17, 18 years old that I wasn't meant to do the thing that I said and I set my life towards? Does that make sense? And so
it makes sense, but you could look at it, you know, we could look backwards and make those kind of connections. What do you do in the moment? What do you do in that moment when you're told you can't be a soccer player? How do you become happy then?
Well, it's a great question. And I think, well, let me two-part it. So I think you have to find your own way in the moment. And in the moment, I think you do have to experience some pain. I do think you do have to let it absorb. I think you do have to let it affect you, because then there needs to be a reaction that comes from it. Okay, like, what am I going to do now? What actions am I going to take now? And whether that's a week later, a day later, a month later, like, so I think you have to take that. And in the moment, I remember taking it, and I remember, yeah, it crushed me. It crushed me. But there was a point where I had to say to myself, okay, Max, pick yourself up. What are you going to do about it? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you going to let it define you, or are you going to let it refine you? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, but I think the purpose of the book and writing the Connect the Dots Max moment is because what I was intending to achieve in that Max moment was to help people look back and really be appreciative of everything in their life. So whilst I can't go back and directly change what happened in that moment, I can be grateful for it. And I don't think for the longest time I was grateful for that moment. And now I have a different perspective. And I think that is the purpose of the Max moment, is to say, when you actually look back, can you be grateful for everything? Can you be grateful for the highs and the lows? Can you be grateful for the positives and the negatives, the good and the bad? Can you be grateful for all the things that you want in the life? And can you also be grateful for all the things you don't want in your life? And I think you know this as well as anybody, Robert, is that gratitude is such an important part of life. And for the longest time, I was not grateful for that moment. Now I've written the book. Now I've tried and help people understand those types of concepts with my teachings. I am truly grateful. And my life is better because of it, because I've been able to put that event that really, like, I look at was just like something I didn't want to talk about and something I wanted to sweep under the rug. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to talk about it. Big why? Because it's a part of who I am, and I am so grateful for it. And that is more of the reason for like the intention of that Max moment, is to help people connect every moment and truly be grateful and truly come from a heart posture of gratitude and love and perspective, And so if I tried to tell my, 17-year-old self, Robert, what would I get? I don't think they would be grateful, but it's a great question. So does that make sense?
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So what's next for Max? What's next? You've written a book now. What's coming up?
I'd like to start, at least for 2024, continuing to inspire like Pepperdine soccer and help our program get to another level. But then with Life to the Max, I definitely want to start speaking on stages a little bit more to kind of share the book and the Max moments. Along with that, then obviously I have different events that I run, like the Good to Great program. It's in an online version, so you can self-pace through it, but then I also offer different group coaching programs on it, and then like little 2-day events and stuff like that. So I'll be doing more of that. But in terms of the book, I really want to start speaking on some stages. I haven't done as much as that recently, and I really, again, in terms of growing myself, putting yourself out there in front of a bunch of people, that's not always an easy thing. And so for my self-growth and self-development, I think that is a position I'm willing and to put myself in, because I know it's not only going to help me, but when I start speaking and talking about these things, I know it's going to help others. So for 2024, the goal for 2023 was to write the book. 2024, speaking on a bunch of stages and trying to get the message out there even more. But I'm excited.
Okay, and how do people find out about what's going on for you? How do they reach you? Do you have a website? What's the best way to get your book?
Yeah, I think the easiest way, everything's driven to the website. So it's just maxrooke.com. So www.maxrooke, MAX, and then Rooke, ROOKE.com, www.maxrooke.com. And then everything's kind of there. And and I have a free like newsletter, stuff that goes out, so sharing all sorts of insights and stuff like that, a lot of the Max moments and stuff like that. So yeah, check it out.
Very, very, very cool. Now I'm gonna send you an email after this with my speaking agent.
Wow,
I have
fantastic.
a speaking agent. I'll contact you if you're interested in that. But in the meantime, Max, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you here on the Raditude podcast. It's great seeing you. I'm so excited about the things that are happening in your life, the book, and speaking on stage with you one of these days, hopefully, maybe, and just living life to the max too. So thank you very much.
You are amazing. And for everybody that's listening right now, Robert is an extraordinary person, and the influence you're making, the impact you're having is nothing short of, like I said, just life-changing. So thank you for everything that you're doing, and I've done not just for me, but all of the lives that you're going to change moving forward. So thank you for doing this. You're an amazing person, so thank you, Robert.
Well, thank you very much, Max. And we're out.